Hello and welcome to another episode of Construction Sport Weekly. Is that what we call it? Construction Sport Weekly. Forgot then. Few things have come up to have a little chat about. We're trying to be positive. However, just a few things to get rid of off the chest. Boygs just popped up. Boygs and Langer Rourke warned over Hinkley Point. Hinkley Point, if you've been to Hinkley Point or you work at Hinkley Point, let us know what's going on because there's always such negative press about it all. Is that just the press, but the real people out there know what's going on? This time, Langer Rourke, the same Langer Rourke that killed multiple people last year, they keep on getting given multiple jobs. Boygs and Langer Rourke have been served warning notices by the nuclear regulator over fire safety failures at Hinkley Point C. The contractors have each received enforcement notices relating to failings by their joint venture. The Office of Nuclear Regulation also served notices. Oh, no, that bit isn't showing. But yeah, so there you go. More worry down at Hinkley Point. I heard a lot of things about Hinkley Point. One of them was about how prostitution had highly risen. One was about how gambling had strongly risen and how it affected all the local villages as well. But that's a whole different story. But yeah, I can't work out if it's a good thing going on down there or not. I got offered a job there a few years back. So could I go down there? Multiple shifts of all different hours. I think you guys who were down there would know, but it's like 4 on, 4 off, 4 on, 4 off, or whatever it was. It was not just Monday to Friday or Mondays and weekends. It was all like shift patterns, I think. So let us know on that. It's interesting because I don't live too far from Sizewell B, what's kicking off. It's obviously an interesting job. But no, it's obviously great for construction, these big jobs going on. But it just seems like there's always something going on down there that isn't quite right from the people you hear on site a little bit, but then also media-wise, but there's never that kind of in-between between both everyone coming together and not. But anyway, site security, another thing we discussed this week, there was a funny thing actually. We walked HS2 last year. It was a great crack, and I keep meaning to say it, but we took a few guys on there who are carpenters, kind of house-bashing carpenters local to us. They couldn't understand how high security is just to get on a project like that. But I've been into prison before, only as a guest. I'll have you know, it was actually with the Saracens Saracens rugby charity kind of thing that they run about supporting prisoners, and we got to put a bit of rugby together in the prison. It was quite good. It was easier to get into Feltham Prison. I think it was Feltham. Or was it somewhere else? Anyway, it was easier to get into that prison than it was to actually get on the HS2 site. The security checks we had just to get onto a couple of the HS2 sites were unbelievable. I actually think all that security is quite negative and really doesn't go well for construction. I get it with a high profile job, especially in those kind of things, but when you literally have to work in an environment where you have to get your fingerprints taken constantly, and then you have to go through and then have to sign in multiple ways and then have to be escorted through one place to another, and you cannot, everything you do is based on clock. You got to clock in and clock out the canteen, for crying out loud. How crazy is that? But this is kind of the world we live in, and I actually fear that actually annihilates construction, because I know a lot of guys who don't work on main contractor jobs anymore because of all that kind of stuff. It's extremely dissatisfying. Is that why construction's struggling and these big projects aren't? Is that why we have to go abroad to get people to come in from different places in the world to give them jobs here? Because the English people, or British people, should we say, aren't up for being monitored in such a way. But who knows? That's not for me. I'm sure there's it was just something that kept coming in conversation the other day about how tight security gets just to go on a job, and is it inhumane? Is it a bit more prison-like? Even as I said, it's worse. Another one. This one come up. I was listening to the main man of UFC last week, and he got discussing Dana White was literally speaking to 10X. It's a great 1 hour podcast from last year, actually, I think. But it goes on about this way that they're doing it out there, and this 10X company can help people in these certain conditions. Dana White does it. I've never done it. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm just saying the topic interested me. But they went on about something called metabolic syndrome. Now, if you don't know about metabolic syndrome, it's freaking interesting. I think if you've got 2 or 3 of these things wrong with you, your life expectancy dramatically drops. But for people who don't know, but symptoms of metabolic syndrome. So what is basically metabolic syndrome is the name of a group of health problems that put you at risk of type 2 diabetes or conditions that affect your heart or blood vessels. It's different from metabolic disorders, which are rare genetic conditions. So when you actually look at the construction world, you might relate to this a little bit. But symptoms of metabolic syndrome, you may not have any symptoms of it, but you usually find out you have it after a blood test or checkup. Check if you're at risk of metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is very common. It's not known what causes it. It's linked to insulin resistance. This is when your body does not respond to hormone insulin properties. It may also be linked to having too much fat around your tummy. You are likely to be metabolic syndrome if you are living with obesity, eat a highly saturated fat diet, do not exercise much, and have Hispanic or South Asian background. That's interesting. Or if you smoke or if you drink a lot of alcohol. Your risk of getting metabolic syndrome also increases as you get older. And tests for it, if your GP or hospital specialist thinks you're having a metabolic syndrome, they will ask about your medical condition and your family's members if they suffer with it. Check your body mass, check your blood pressure, ask any symptoms you have. Treatments for the syndrome. You may also, treatment for metabolic syndrome usually involves making changes to your lifestyle. You may be offered medicines to help you lose weight, improve your insulin resistance, improve cholesterol, lower your blood pressure. This is all based on the NHS website. But go online if you're interested in it. If you're a bit fat, if you're not fat, but you're worried about your health, if you've got blood pressure issues, if you've got gout, cancers, or there are fears of some cancers can be formed from it, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and osteoarthritis. There's a whole host of things linked to this, but I'm a bit of a weirdo that I hear these things and I start doing a bit of research in my head and I start listening to podcasts about stuff that relate to this. But go online. We'll put a little post or a little tag. The Dana White thing that I listen to, I'll tell the boys to tag it into this post. But it's really interesting where it leads to and the amount of problems it can have. But a lot of the things you can help yourself with, not by getting onto drugs and medicines, but actually getting out and just exercising and getting yourself fit and healthy and concentrating on your health. Right. Disposable vapes to be banned for children's health, government says. Interesting. Because I didn't actually realise they'd made vapes for children yet, but this is what they're banning. Disposable vapes are set to be banned as part of plans to tackle the rising number of young people taking up vaping. Measures will also be introduced to prevent vapes being marketed at children and to target underage sales. How are you going to do that? I've got this. So Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the little fella, suggested adult smokers trying to quit would still have access to alternative little vapes under the proposals. The ban is expected to introduce across the UK, the government said. It's illegal to sell any vape to anyone under 18, but disposable vapes, often sold in smaller, more colourful packaging than refillable ones, are key driver behind the alarming rise of youth vaping. So there you go, children. No more vapes for you, but they can see it. They make them all strawberry flavours, and they all kind of bubblegum flavours. But talking in the vape situation, and we're speaking to quite a few now, but vaping, I think, was brought out to try and veer people away from smoking in general. But I believe, from what they're saying as well now, is people are starting vaping who weren't even smoking. So they're just doing it especially for the taste of these things. Are you a smoker? Would you be interested in quitting smoking? Would you go to vape? If you would be interested in quitting smoking and going over to a vape, please do give us a little shout in. So we're interested. There's a few things we've got coming up. We're interested. Are people doing that? Are you doing that? Are you quitting smoking by going to a type of vape? If you are you cutting down the amount of vaping you're doing? Get in touch with us, let us know, because we've got a few things going on under the surface where some kind of people from professional bodies want to support you, or NHS related and not malarkey. And yes, and that is it. So the other one as well, based on the feedback we've had from TikTok, I just wanted to go over a few things. It's quite interesting, but we had a post go out the other day, went quite big in terms of what we do, but in terms of TikTok, we've reached just under 200,000 views with it, and it's obviously struck a chord with a lot of people, and there's quite a bit of feedback on it as well. So, so we put out there about the HSC have basically told everyone the safety footwear in the cold weather is what they should pay attention to, and that they shouldn't work in cold conditions because as construction workers, that's something that we're completely right to do. Just don't work in it and don't worry about not getting paid. But a few of the comments on it. Tell that to my mortgage broker. Sorry, mortgage, can't pay you this month. Health and safety said so. Makes you wonder how they ever built anything with this kind of knowledge the last few hundred years. So yeah, on the post, I've literally said, Health and safety executive recommends you do not work in cold weather because it was literally 0 degrees for 2 days the other week. And from what the audience is saying, site I'm working hasn't had running water for 3 days, can't wash hands, the toilets won't flush, but people keep shitting. Health and safety only matters when it suits. Feet got numb, can't feel the cold. Crack on. Site manager told me we're no longer allowed to wear a woolly hat under the hard hat. I've had that for a number of years, to be honest, as well. But who knows? I've been in construction since before I left school. Glad I now have someone who never done the job telling me how I should look after myself. Blonde Bricky says, coming from someone that's never worked outside in the winter. Yeah, and it goes on and on. But here's another one. Rigger boots. I'm a massive fan of rigger boots as a ground worker. I grew up the early parts of my career off-site, more kind of private working, house bashing stuff in rigger boots, and I loved them, especially this time of year. It's only when you go on the bigger sites now. They're not actually a banned boot in terms of from a legitimate organisation or a bigger entity. They are just like a company policy that they do not allow people to wear them on their sites. So many sites won't have a policy like that. Some will, some won't. I personally think they're safer than some boots. If you look at a lot of people who are actually wearing boots, many people won't have the boots tied up properly anyway. I reckon you'd probably get some more support out of rigger boots. I think it's time to start our petition for justice for the rigger boot because multiple ground workers are massive fans of them. I love them. They're fur-lined. They can make you work in the winter. If it gets below 0 degrees, your feet stay warm. The health and safety executive needs to know that. Rigger boots, justice, hashtag justice for the rigger boot. Please help us get the rigger boot back into action or get some people figuring out a way that they can make them just a little bit safer. I get it. They might not be as tight around the ankle as some boots, but honestly, I see better boots being worn by, or rigger boots being worn better than anyone else with dodgy laced up ones. But on that note, this week, thank you for having us. Pay attention. Take care. Look after yourself. Keep your feet warm.